In this lesson, you'll learn a bit more about the different Unity render pipelines there are and what is a render pipeline actually. So let's say Unity has different ways of processing graphics. So you would have, for example, a mobile phone and then a tablet and then even a game that could be played on a smart TV. And then you'd have like a full-fledged huge PC build, like $5,000 build that you could play on 4K, 8K, like the highest resolution. And Unity needs to know what's that end device so it can compile shaders differently and it can create imagery in a different way. So let's not go too complex with that, but let's say that there are three types of render pipelines. The first one is the built-in render pipeline. That's the base render pipeline in which Unity has been existing for the past 100 years or so. And that version allowed you to create, I don't know, like WebGL builds for like, online websites, like mini game websites to host those types of Unity games. You could see a lot of those on itch.io, which is a platform like Steam that allows users to upload their own indie games, especially indie games. Then you would have other types of builds like for phone and other use cases, like also normal PC games. But nowadays, the render pipeline that's used for that is URP. URP is universal render pipeline, and that means that it's gonna adjust to most of the platforms that are there in the market. So also consoles and phones and PC, and it's like the go-to for most users because it allows you for more flexibility. It can deploy games in a lot of in a wide spectrum of platforms, and that's really great because when you're creating a video game, you want your game to be on as much platforms as possible to get a lot of money. I guess that's the business that there is behind games. But then if you want to develop something more like similar to what you can get with Unreal Engine, which is like high-end type of engine, not specifically made for phones and stuff like that, you would use the HDRP, which is the high definition render pipeline. In this case, high definition render pipeline is just another way of saying, hey, crank everything up to 11, make everything as nicely looking as possible, and it's gonna have a lot of resource consumption. Like the PC is gonna be working a bit harder to display like the graphics in the screen, and it might not be like, I think you can't really deploy like an HDRP game on an iPhone, for example. Don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure. I think that there are phones that are capable of running those games right now. But in most use cases, you want to use, you would just use HDRP for like high-end PC games. And that's the main intent. And each of those has different settings. So for example, the built-in render pipeline doesn't have like, additional shader stuff or VFX stuff. And for example, on URP, you have different specific tools for you to create VFX, which we are not going to be using because we're going to be using another set of tools that will allow us to create effects on all the three render pipelines. And doesn't matter if it's yeah, excuse me, doesn't matter if they are actually using URP, because URP has tools such as VFX Graph, which is a tool that will allow you to create visual effects in a more kind of like advanced way, but it's not too stable. And also you have shader graph, which is a way for you to create shaders built into the Unity system. Shaders are just a way to compile materials so the VFX can display different behaviors and graphics and whatnot. We're gonna go more in depth into those and what's a shader and what's materials and all that jazz in the other courses. But yeah, you just need to know that to be able to like discern which render pipeline is specifically good for you. So in this case, we're going to be creating a URP project, which is the Universal Render Pipeline project. And from there, we'll be just, taking a look around Unity and how you can, start having a bit of insight into how to develop base VFX there. So yeah, let's go ahead and create our own project.